Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire.
Oh, you're trying to bring me down and run me out of town. You're taking what you want, but you can't take my rhythm now. I'm walking to my own beat, just gonna be me. I'm not replicating nobody.
Hey, youth workers, this is Doug Edwards, your host with Youth Worker on Fire, and tonight I have a long-time youth pastor who's going to talk to us, who we're going to interview. His name is David Kelly, and I've known David since before he was a youth pastor, which then again, I've known a lot of people since before they were a lot of things because I'm really old compared to most of them. So, but they got David Kelly, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about him because Dave is a graduate of the University of Florida in 1995. He married his wife Karen in 1996, and David, we're gonna talk about that in a little bit. And when he moved to Eustis, he joined Hope Presbyterian Church and began volunteering with the youth. He did that from 1997 to 2001. He taught English journalism, coached 3 sports at Eustis High School. I guess he did all that just because he's bored, didn't have enough to do, right? So anyway, on July 1st, 2001, came on staff as full-time youth director at New Hope. Later that year, they became parents with the birth of their daughter, Catherine, and the next year welcomed their son, JT. They're members of Southland Camps leadership team. Southland Camps is a 501(c)(3) youth organization under the umbrella of the PCA church that connects students to Christ and community. He's also a volunteer at Tavares High School and works closely with the football team. And he's still New Hope Presbyterian's, wait a minute, New Hope's youth group, The Well. It's The Well, right, David?
Yeah, I gave up after 15 years and finally gave it a name other than youth.
Hey, come to youth. Right. I know. Yeah, let's give it a name. 15 years is good. You know, they meet on Wednesday nights, and graduated from RTS Orlando, which is a seminary. In May 2016, received his Master's of Divinity degree. In April, we need to talk about that too. Hopefully I'll remember that because I have some information for you, even if we don't cover it here. April 2017, I was ordained, or he was ordained, and I wasn't ordained. They wouldn't even let me come and join that. You know, he wouldn't let me go there. So anyway, I'm joking. I actually did spend 1 semester at RTS. I actually did. He was ordained and installed by the Central Florida Presbytery as an associate pastor at New Hope. Then had a focus on men's discipleship and leadership training with an emphasis in church planting. He also continued to be the youth director there. Some of his favorite things to do outside of student ministry are hunting, fishing, and drinking ice-cold Coca-Cola from a mason jar with raindrop ice. Now, that's just not even fair to say right now, David. Yes, he's addicted, he says.
You can just picture it, can't you?
I can taste it. Yeah, I can picture it right in my brain, some of my. Loves family and students, but most glad that Jesus loves him and us and allows his family to know him more and more. So that's the bio that you sent me. We talked about. We know other things about you, but let's start off with this. Catch us up from there. We know about some of those things. You've been in for a while. I believe you and I talked today. 22 years. 22 years.
Going on. Yeah, just about.
Going on. Almost there. So catch me up with where you are right now, you know, family, ministry, whatever you want to tell me. Just catch me up to this year.
Sure. So my wife is now teaching across town at the Crosstown Rival, Tavares High School. We both were teachers at Eustis when I met you.
Yeah.
And So now she's still teaching math, but at a different school. And both of our kids are in college. I got a daughter down at FAU, and my son is up at Western Carolina. You're familiar with that neck of the woods?
Yes, I am.
He's in Cullowhee, North Carolina, and so they're both doing really well. And I am still doing the same old thing that I've been doing. Just enjoy being around students every week and pouring into them, but also kind of found a new passion over the last 5 years of developing leaders to plant churches. And so my heart and my soul is to try to raise up leaders, whether they're sixth graders or whether they're 30-year-olds looking to go into ministry, and try to get them to see the importance of carrying on the church.
Yeah, and that is absolutely important and an amazing thing. The thing I want to ask you about that is, number one, 22 years. How do you say, not only 20, is that 20, are you counting your volunteer years as 22?
No, not years. It'll be July 1st of 2023 will be 22 years. So yeah, I've been at about maybe 21 and a half right now.
But that counts your volunteers years as well?
No, if I counted volunteer years, I mean, I could go back probably to when I was 18 and I got a phone call to be an FCA huddle coach at Black Mountain. You know, that's when I first got my first taste of summer camp and what it's like to do youth ministry.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I think that that is part of it, because we're talking to volunteers as well. Anyone that has anything to do with students, I'm specifically reaching out to youth pastors with this because we want to see that long-term effect. That's why you're on here. But I believe that many of us, or some of us, I can't say many, I don't know how many, but volunteered before we ever started doing student ministry full time in some way.
You know this, we can't do it without the volunteers. They're the heroes. I mean, they're the ones that at our summer camp, we have everybody stand up. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing that. And then at the last, it's whoever volunteered to be here this week, not getting paid, you stand up, and then everybody on the bus buys them lunch. Everybody gives them a hug. Everybody, they're the heroes of youth ministry.
Right, exactly. And they are. I mean, I couldn't have done any of the things that we did without all the volunteers that were there. It takes a real team, and you understand that. Tell me who that influencer was, though. Here you are. You've got your adolescent years, just like everybody else. Very few of us are hatched. Most of us actually were born and raised, and we go through this adolescent thing from 11 to maybe 25 if we're guys. Who is that one influencer other than your parents? I know you got wonderful parents. We've talked about them before, but and they're amazing. You can talk about them sometime if you want, or even here. But was there somebody outside of that realm that was a youth pastor, coach, pastor, teacher?
Yeah. For me, I think it would probably have to be a coach, because I did not, even though I professed Christ at 14, I did not have that mentor in my life. I didn't have that one Christian that sat me down and showed me how to read the Bible, showed me how to do a Bible study. And so I really struggled for probably the first 10 years of being a Christian. And but the person who influenced me to keep working with young people and to kind of give back was an old coach in our town. He had retired, but he was a basketball coach, and he played tennis with my dad and I occasionally. And I had been out at University of Southern Mississippi at a basketball camp, and now a lot of people listening may not understand this, but there was a day when there was not cell phones or email.
Well, we're not sure when that was. We've heard about that. I've heard about it.
But I was alive during one of those eons ago. And so I was out at University of Southern Mississippi, and I I didn't break it, but I sprained my ankle bad enough I had to be in a boot for 6 weeks. And somehow he heard about it. And my mom was getting her master's out there. And so I was there all summer laid up in a dorm room. And he wrote me a letter. And that letter was to tell me never to give up on pursuing the things that meant something to me. And so just that letter showed me that somebody cared about me. And the way that letter made me feel, I wanted to pass that on to other students. That's one of the reasons I became a coach. And I think that's how God called me into youth ministry, is through teaching and coaching.
No, that's perfect. That's exactly what we're talking about. And sometimes it doesn't have to do with Christ when there's that one person that flips that switch, but ultimately it ends up for those as believers. The reason I say it that way is because sometimes it was someone inadvertently that wasn't even a Christian that pushed us toward Jesus. In your case, it was this coach, or that's right, your coach?
That's right. Yeah, he was never my coach, but he was just a coach in town. He was a Christian, a strong Christian man, and he was just a great encourager. I would compare him to Coach Blake up here. He was kind of that known figure of just encouragement and somebody who cared a lot about people and just kind of went the extra mile.
Yeah, and who David's talking about, because there's people from all over the United States and different parts of the world. Coach Blake is in another episode. If you go back and you look at all of our episodes, you'll see somewhere around probably 60, 70, somewhere in the 60s and 70s of episodes. Coach has got his whole crew. I got him in there once speaking, but we surprised him with a bunch of people from the school. And he was one of those ultimate coaches, Christian leaders, Fellowship Christian Athlete directors for 30 years, championship coach, etc. So that's who David's talking about and comparing this guy to. So let's go into your student ministry now. What made you realize that you need to do student ministry and that God was leading you that way?
Yeah, that's a funny story, but I never had a dream of being in ministry ever, and I had a perfect scenario of I had everything I'd ever wanted. Being a basketball coach, just won a district championship with 4 sophomore starters. Was coaching high school football. Was coaching high school softball. Loving my life, and our youth director at our church had graduated and left, and we needed to hire a new youth director. And so my wife and I were on the committee to hire a new youth thing. And I had a basketball game, so I didn't go. And she came home from the meeting and said, well, on the way home from this meeting, all the moms looked at me and said, so do you think David will take the job? And she's like, I don't know. And so she came home and told me that. And I said, well, maybe we should pray about it. And she goes, well, you can pray about it, but I'm gonna have to talk to God a little bit more. And so that was kind of the beginning.
Yeah, that is interesting. That is funny. I'll tell you what, I like that story, and I like the fact that you guys didn't just dive right in.
Yeah,
and I love the fact that Karen said, you can pray about it, but because
I'm going straight to God. Yeah,
yeah, I know. We really expect our wives sometimes. Oh man, they're just going to love this. They're going to jump right in. And God is real strategic about who He gives us as spouses.
Oh yeah,
especially if we're going into ministry.
Man.
And they will call our number out many times. I don't know about you. Maybe Karen won't.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the only time.
It's been a huge blessing that way. A huge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think after that, it took us about 6 weeks of praying, and just what we learned through the process was, God was saying, do you trust me? And ultimately we just said, we trust you with everything. And I tell the story that I went from having influence over about 1,200 students, knowing a lot of their names and stories, and going to a church where my first youth meeting had 0 students show up, and all I did was pray for 2 hours. And I wasn't off to a promising start in the world's eyes, but it was definitely a time of humbling for me, where God just wanted me to get my heart after His heart, and I think after I did that, then things started kind of falling in place as far as trying to figure out what in the heck youth ministry really was all about.
Yes, yeah, and I knew you and Karen, of course, when you were both teaching.
Yeah.
And then when you were going through that struggle, I remember y'all going through that struggle. What do we do? Is this the right thing? And and so that's amazing, and for people to hear, because somebody out there, maybe one, is going to hear this and they're going to go, okay, now I maybe I can make it through this struggle to figure out if this is what I need to do and need to be.
And you were instrumental, Doug. I mean, in helping us, and always, I remember all the days we sat at Perkins eating breakfast, and you were such a wealth of information and encouragement and just steadiness in this area as a youth leader and youth pastor, and your willingness to help a young guy that had never done it before. It was unbelievable. I couldn't have asked God to give me anybody better to help show me the ropes.
Well, I appreciate that, and you've gone far beyond what I ever told you. And the fact that you stayed there those years, and that's why I want to lead into this. Tell me your worst ministry moment.
Yeah,
because all of us relate better with people's worst ministry moments than they do their best.
Yeah.
We're going to do both, but tell me the one that you can tell me about.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, right? Because I mean, we talked about that before too. Is there's so many hard things in ministry that people will never know. That you just have to, for the sake of the peace and the purity of the church and stuff like that, you just have to deal with it. And but I would say probably craziest ministry, probably one of my craziest ministry moments is when I was taking students down to Peru on mission trips, and we would do 2-week trips. We'd do 1 week construction and then 1 week basketball camp. And usually the second week, parents would show up and help us with the basketball camp because it required having a lot more people there. And the first week was really just the time to get to know students and build relationships with them and things like that. Well, I had a couple parents come the second week, and on the way back, I was going through customs, and I always made sure that I was the last person through the gate, because I wanted my whole team to be in front of me. At least they made it home,
Yes. We lost David, but the rest of us got back.
David. They can find another David, but all these parents, we got to make sure they make it home.
That's right.
So I told everybody goes in front of me, and so we're all in line. And one of the dads was there, and all of a sudden he takes 2 of the students. He goes, "Hey, we're gonna go get some ice cream." He just leaves the customs line, and they have my passport. And I'm like, good luck getting home, And so I walked through customs and leaving 3 of my people behind, freaking out. We're sitting on the plane, and it's 1 minute till takeoff, 0 minutes till takeoff. They closed the door. All of a sudden, we're sitting there. All of a sudden, the door opens and the 3 yahoos get on the plane.
No.
That's
a nightmare.
That's probably the most panicked I've been in ministry, is leaving 3 people in another country,
Oh my.
with no communication, no ways of knowing where they're going to be or what they're going to do.
The question is, did the parent learn anything from that?
Yeah, I don't know. What? I'll have to look him up on Facebook and ask.
Oh my, no, that is a nightmare, buddy. That's one of the I mean, there's some tragic things out there, but
Yeah.
that is one of the scariest things I've heard. I've been to, because I've been to Third World.
Oh yeah, you've
with
been to
students,
every.
and oh my goodness, that's just yeah. So that's a pretty bad ministry moment. People are going to relate with that one.
Where's my kid?
That's right.
I don't know where your kid is right now.
But he's with a parent.
Yeah, he's definitely with a chaperone.
And I think I've been able to overcome all the liability. I think it's all on the parent. We've
Right.
signed everything.
Chaperone's no longer a part of the student ministry, but
That's right.
he's with your child.
That's right. Oh man, I'm glad they got back. Glad they got on the plane.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't believe that.
Yeah, I know. That was a big relief.
All right, so tell me your best student ministry moment that you can think of.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I thought about all the different things in ministry, and for me, I had both of my kids come through my youth ministry. I know you had the privilege of doing that too, and we told our kids when they're in high school, we said, you can go to whatever youth group you want, and the fact that they still wanted to come to Dad's youth group, probably meant more to me than anything else, and that's kind of a selfish answer, but that to me has always been kind of cool that, when they got wheels, they could go to wherever they want and they still showed up every week. So
No, I think that is an amazing answer. And number one, I think guys that are in full-time student ministry as youth pastors are probably freaking out at that answer right now, because what do you mean you're going to let your kid go?
Yeah.
So you're hired here. But you know what? What you did was you gave your children a chance to be themselves and not owned by the ministry. Psychologically, in my mind, that was just an amazing gift you gave to your children.
And, I tell other parents that go to our church that too. I said, it's not going to offend me if your kid goes to, Trinity or Life Point or any of these other area, the Methodist church or whatever other church. I know all the youth pastors. So it's kind of like, I'm like, that's great. You want your kid want to try something else? I'll tell you where they should go. I'll tell you where they fit in better.
Yeah.
Because I don't want a kid that's, lonely and hurt and doesn't enjoy being there. I want them to go somewhere they can thrive and grow and learn about Jesus. So,
and listen, I'm not sure everybody understands this. If parents are listening to this, this is a good thing. Grandparents, because there's some real truth and real teaching here that you just entered us into, and that is, how do you do that? There was a time in student ministry, and that time is still there. I mean, COVID has just messed with our brains in so many ways. There's some amazing good things, I think, that came out of COVID because of in ministry. I know they have in other areas of life. There's some horrible things, but and I'm not specifically talking about that. But there was a time, most of the time, with churches before student ministry and in student ministry over the decades, that people were very protective. No, you're not to go anywhere else. You're to be here with us in this church. What are you stealing our kids for? Youth pastors used to say that. And all of us have, I don't know about you, but most of us have felt that before too.
Oh yeah.
Even though you're saying the right things, you're absolutely right. And I encourage my students too. I encourage
See a kid on Sunday morning and you don't see him on Wednesday night. You're like,
the
great. That makes me feel wonderful.
Right. Either they're not going anywhere or they're going somewhere.
Sure.
Right. And, but I did encourage them too, because I wanted them to feel free to bring their friends from other churches. And I wanted them to feel free to go with people from other churches. And a great thing was exactly what you talked about. There were many years that we had a great core of youth pastors from our surrounding 4-city community that it was a great support system, because we all had our ups, we all had our downs, we all had our woes, we learned from each other. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, I think it honestly started with you and I at Perkins, just drinking coffee, and then we just kept other guys to come and learn and grow. And I just actually, Brian Lawson, who's a pastor in Zellwood now at the Methodist Church, whenever I was in the thick of seminary, he kind of took over that Collide and ran with it until he became a senior pastor. And then it kind of fell dormant for the last few years. But just a couple months ago, we started meeting again, and about 4 or 5 of us got together. And I'm hoping that in 2023, we can get that thing going again, because it is so, how fast people come and go in and out of ministry. But even if they're only there for 2 years, they need people that they can talk to and trust and mentor, have, an opportunity to be mentored and encouraged.
Yeah, they really do. And churches are not as, probably the majority churches, and I don't want to put numbers on it because I personally haven't studied the numbers.
Yeah.
I've just been around for a while and been with some other organizations, blah, blah, blah. But most churches don't hire well anyway. And if they do hire well, they didn't know why they hired well.
Right.
It was an accident, and so you get these guys that are in or ladies, but they don't treat them well.
Yeah.
They don't treat them nicely, and they don't treat them nicely or well for different reasons. Tell me about, David, 22 years, not counting your volunteer years there.
Right.
How many times did you want to quit?
Oh, yeah. That's a great question, too. I don't know if I've ever gotten to the point where I'm like, I'm out, but there definitely are Wednesdays and Sundays and other days that you've got to go, and you're just like, oh, this is hard. This is, Lord, give me some strength. And I think the biggest thing with, for me is, I have prayed, God, move. I've been in the same place for 21 years, and same church as a member for 26 years. And so I have prayed during that time, Lord, send me to Africa, or send me to Canada, or send me where you want me to go. And the answer keeps coming back, Eustis.
Yeah.
And so, I think everybody in whatever career they're in, whether it's, medical field, or whether it's sales, or whether it's just being a mom or a dad, you have those days where it's just like, I don't think I can do this today. And I think we all have those. But for me, I usually just pray about it and ask God, is this where you want me to be? Is this what you want me to be doing? And for the last few years anyway, he's just been saying yes.
Yeah. Now, and once again, most of us go through that if you're going to stay somewhere long term.
Yeah.
And I'll refer back to a principal in high school, Nancy Velez. I can say her full name because she's on one of the episodes. Sorry, Nancy, you gave yourself up. So anyway, and Nancy.
Oh yeah.
But Nancy, I interviewed her because I was doing a lot of the interviews through the media department at the high school. They were gracious and said, hey, we'd love to help you if you decide to do a project. So they helped for several years there. So I interviewed Nancy and I said, what do you tell teachers, and people that they've just hit a wall and they're just, some bad things have happened and they're just ready to resign. And she said, here's what I always tell them. And I think this applies to youth pastors. It actually applies to life in general. She said to the teachers, never quit when you're hurt or upset. Give it a while, give it a few days. And if you really need to leave, wait till you're having good days to make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought that was amazing advice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of the pro athletes do, right? When they get to the end of the season, they've had a bad loss or whatever, and everybody's like, "Are you retiring this year?" They're like, "I'm going to spend the summer with my family. We're going to talk about it. We're going to pray about it, and then I'll let you know later."
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I've had those moments too. But it's great to hear you talk about that, because right now there's people hurting everywhere and going, I can't do this anymore. The board's against me. My parents are against me. There's a kid that's just ruined my world, emotionally, and or my volunteers have talked about me and I hurt them, and something.
And I would say too, that's the two things that have probably kept me in ministry collide, and then what you read in my bio, Southland summer camps. I've been on the board of that organization. Is just a bunch of youth pastors who decided they wanted to put on summer camps and winter camps together. And so having a cohort of people that are like-minded and people that you can vent to, people you can cry with, people you can pray with, people you can learn from and grow with, that's vital to staying in student ministry. If you don't have that, I don't know how you aren't bitter and angry and a sad soul. But you have to have people you can go to war with, and I think that's the beauty of youth ministry, and all the different youth conferences that you've been to and been a part of, and you know the importance of having that kinship, and friendship.
Yeah, I do. It's you can't even put a value on it. You can't even put a number on it. You'll go to a conference and you won't even want to be going. You won't want to go to a training. You go, I don't even want to go. I don't want to see people. And you'll go, and God will give you that one moment there that's like, oh, this is why I'm here. Okay, this is.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll tell you this. I hope I can remember the guy's name. He's a famous communicator. But I was at a youth pastor summit.
Yeah.
And I remember it was by myself. I don't think any of my volunteers came that year or something, but some of the youth pastors were there. And so I was walking out. We're going into the pavilion. We'd been in the main assemblies, and they this particular time, I don't think they ever did it again, but they split us out into different pavilions with different speakers. And this time I was in, I forgot what, is it kind of an outdoor pavilion with a cap on it. So you didn't get rained on. Can't even remember his name right now. I wish I could. But one of the youth pastors, I saw him, and he said, "Oh, you going to this?" I said, "Yeah." So I turned around and went back in with him because I was leaving the park van. I was getting out of there.
Right.
And who was the speaker? The mega church pastor who was from China. That he was. You know what I'm talking about. What's his name?
Francis Chan?
Francis Chan. First time I ever saw Francis Chan. First time I ever heard him. Blew me out of the water. It was exactly what I need to hear. That probably carried me for a couple of years.
Yeah.
That particular meeting. So yeah, I do understand what you're saying there, and the reason I'm so glad for some of the things you're saying here, David, is because these are real things that are happening to people all over, and they think they're alone.
Yeah.
They think they're alone, and there's times you thought you were alone. There's times I thought I was alone.
Most people in your churches that see your youth ministry, they see all the fun you have. They see all the kids. They're like, "Oh, you're doing so good. You're doing so great." But they don't see, every family has a sin struggle. Every family has a heartache. Every family has brokenness, and you're dealing with all of them.
Yes, that's right.
And so
that's right.
If you can't have other people that you can go to and just love on you, and you love on them, and help them see, like you said, you're not the only one that's dealing with everything. There's other people that are in that same battle with you,
So I think here's what I think is more interesting than anything. I hope I can get these two things in right now. One is I want to know, some things. We haven't even talked about hunting and fishing, and I think that's important. Tell me about your love story with Karen first, though, because I remember you telling us about your love story. Tell us how all that came about and how you met her and all that stuff, because it's very unique, I thought.
Yeah. Well, she'd be the primary reason I'm still in ministry, because of her prayer life. And I guess our love story started way back in the nursery of Presbyterian Church in Wauchula, Florida. We both were babies in the nursery together, and our parents said if they knew then what they knew now, they'd have taken a lot more pictures. But fast forward to college, we didn't start dating until we were in college, and it was kind of like 51st dates. I had to convince her to keep going out on dates with me, and I think about the 51st date, she gave in and decided that this might work out for her. So she went to Florida Southern, I went to University of Florida, and we kind of long distance dated our senior years in college. She was 2 years behind me in high school, but she was a senior the same time I was in college. I don't know how that math works out, because she's the math teacher.
Well, she's a math teacher. That's how it worked out. She figured it out.
But we have so many of the same interests. She loves the Lord, and I love the Lord. We love doing outdoor things. We love being on the water. We love going to the mountains. We have just a lot of the same things, and we ended up both being teachers. I wasn't a teacher in college, but somehow that God called me into that profession, and
I remember that. It was. I remember. I think I talked to her about it before I talked to you about it. I think she said, or maybe I even met her before you. She said, "Yeah, they're trying to hire my husband."
Yeah, she came in '95. Right after she graduated May of '95 and started teaching when she was 21 at Eustis High School in August of '95.
There you go.
And we got engaged in October of '95. I was still at UF. And then I graduated, and in '96 we got married, and I moved to Eustis.
Yeah.
She was it was great. Just a great story of two kids that fell in love, and Lord's just been blessed us for the last quarter of a century.
That's right. Tell me something that we don't know about you that is really unique, something you and your family have done, something that's just very few people know about, but it was a real adventure or something like that. Anything like that? Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people know that I love to hunt and fish, and that I'm I don't know how many people know that I walked into Bass Pro Shop one day and won a turkey calling contest, or I won second place in a turkey calling contest without any turkey calls. So that's kind of fun. But
no, I never knew that. How did I miss that?
Yeah, won $250.
Oh, so my goodness.
Walked into Bass Pro, and they had a turkey calling contest, and I said, I can do that. And I didn't know you were allowed to use turkey calls. And then got up there and somehow came in second place, and that was funny. I probably the other thing is when we went to Peru, we sand surfed. They have these ginormous sand dunes, and it's in an oasis in the desert. There's a little lake in the middle of the desert, and it's like a tourist attraction. And we had to hike up a mountain of sand. And when I mean a mountain, I mean like a Colorado mountain. Like you hike all the way up there, and you had a snowboard that you put wax on, and you just sit down on the snowboard and you ride it as fast as you can go down the sand.
How many times did you eat sand?
Oh, we just did it once because we did not want to hike back up. So we ate it several times on the way down.
Hey, but you did it once, man. That's more than most people from the U.S. have done.
Boy woke up from his night's sleep, and he had at least 3 pounds of sand that came out of his eyes and ears, other places.
No, that's quite an adventure. And Peru was quite an amazing place. So
A lot of stories there.
yeah. Did you guys get to go to Machu Picchu? Did I say that right?
Yeah, Machu Picchu. I did not personally go to Machu Picchu because it was way up in the mountains, but we did have a group that went with us that went there. I did get to go to the mouth of the Amazon, and that was an amazing time. Got to go down the Amazon in a handmade wooden canoe, 1 inch off the water, with piranhas and anacondas. And,
yeah.
and
Did you pet anacondas and say, "Here, buddy, come here"?
Yeah.
Any of those?
They were telling us stories about it, and I just wanted to tell the guy, "Listen, I'm already scared enough. You don't have to."
Can we turn around?
The missionaries getting knocked out of the canoe, reading their Bible, drug halfway across the island. Yeah, I don't need to know that story.
No, that's not my story for this trip. No, I have to go back. I have students. That's the excuse, right? Jesus will understand if I don't let them eat me.
Yeah.
No crocodiles. Did you see any crocs?
We did. Yeah, there was.
So you saw all of that in there.
Coolest thing I saw was a pink dolphin.
Really?
In the Amazon. Yeah, you can look it up. It's a rojo. I don't know how to say dolphin in Spanish, but yeah, red dolphin, pink dolphin.
See, I didn't think those were true. I saw that in the movie Jungle Cruise with The Rock.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Those. Is that what they look like? Is that really them?
100%.
Oh my goodness! I thought, no, there's no way that's real. So you and The Rock, how close were y'all? Were y'all there together at the same time? And
yeah, my professional football career was shorter than his. So.
Oh, that's amazing. Those are bigger. I've had some adventures, but those are bigger adventures than I've had. In fact, I really don't really care to be at the mouth of the Amazon. Good for you.
Yeah, I've heard some adventures, so I don't know about
that. You've heard of some of mine, huh? We have a mutual friend, though. I want you to tell me about. He was my volunteer for a while, and your good friend too, Rodney Mashburn. You need to tell me about the fishing stories you told at our friend Alan Milky's memorial.
Yeah.
So I think because this is about volunteers, and Rodney was an amazing volunteer, and still doing student ministry as well as working in business.
Yeah.
With Jason Magus.
Awesome.
Tell me, Tell me about that story about Rodney, because I think since this is all about student ministry and volunteers, everyone needs to know it, and Rodney will appreciate it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, Rodney and I and Alan Milky would usually take a week in the summertime and go down to a lake house that our family owned in Lake Placid, Florida, and we'd get up almost every morning and every evening and go out and fish, and till we got hungry anyway, and then we'd come in and have breakfast, but we would go and Rodney and Alan seemed to think that I did not know where the fish were, so that was always the nemesis, and I was the one driving the boat, so I went where I thought the fish were. I didn't listen to them, and they'd always be like, "Can you at least go somewhere where we got a chance to catch a fish?" And so Rodney also did not like to fish where it was calm. He wanted it to be wavy because for whatever reason he caught more fish whenever there was waves. Well, we went out one day and it was rough. I mean, it was like being on the ocean, and it was, the bow was bouncing up and down, up and down. And the next thing we know, we turn around and look, and Rodney's all four up in the air. He's falling down in the boat. And I just turned around and I said, "Rodney, you can't catch any fish like that." But yeah, we always give him a hard time about falling in the boat. And then I guess a couple trips later, I fell out of the boat. And so Alan would always make fun of us that no wonder he couldn't catch any fish. He had people falling in the boat, out of the boat. All kinds of trouble. Yeah,
well, both those guys are a hoot, and you three together, it's just you should have just filmed yourself constantly and put it on
a reality show.
Some show called Fisherman's Paradise or something.
Yeah, how not to catch fish.
Right, how not to catch fish. No, and the lake. Listen, if you don't know where Wauchula is and all this, I've been there to David's place that his family owned in the Lake Placid, right? Lake Placid.
Lake June and winter. Yeah.
Yeah, and just massive lake. And it is placid though, right? It's called Lake Placid.
It's in Lake Placid. The lake
in
is
Lake
called
Placid.
June and winter.
June and winter is the name of the lake.
Lake June and winter.
See, I just wanted to call it Lake Placid because I expected the giant alligator to come and eat everybody,
right.
Like in the movies, and stuff. And so, but that lake is actually in New York State. Is that right? The one that they...
Yeah, the one they filmed the movie, yeah.
There's no gators up there. That is just so... Anyway, there's plenty of gators in your lake. Plenty of gators. Plenty of everything. Yeah. I do remember one time I went fishing with you, and I think we had a bass jump in the boat. Is that right?
We could have. I'm famous for catching fish with a trash can.
Oh, really?
So when I take the kids skiing, there's a special phenomenon in that lake where the bass try to eat bluegill that are too big for them to swallow, and so they end up floating on top of the water. They're not dead, but they can't go in. They can't go into the water. So I come by with a little trash can, scoop them both up, and then throw them in the live well.
That's what I remember. I remember one of those fish that you got that time. Yeah, that's it. Okay, man. Anything you want to tell youth workers that you think will help them along their journey, and if they're not willing to right now, they think 2 years is enough or a year's enough, and I'm done, or maybe even 5 years. What do you think would what advice do you want to give these guys? Anything. It doesn't have to be about that. Anything about it.
Yeah, I would say, one of the biggest tips I got when I went through seminary, I had a professor that challenged us to have a mentor, have somebody that would pour into us, have somebody that we could do life on life with, somebody that we were in the same place in life, kind of doing the same thing, like a fellow youth worker, and then have somebody you can pour into. And if you can get all three of those, you're going to be a busy person because that's a full life. And if you can get two out of three of those, you'll be doing good. And if you're only doing one, that's okay too. But you need to have at least one of those things going on in your life where you got a place to pour into somebody or do life with somebody or have somebody pour into you. And if you can get all three, you got the sweet spot. But I would just say, to youth workers, stay faithful to God's word and just keep doing what he says. That's the most important thing. You're going to have a lot of outside noise. You're going to have a lot of people telling you how to do this, how to do that. But if you can stay true to God's word, he'll never steer you wrong.
That's right. That's right. Okay. And we're going to leave them on a light note. I was not good at this, but I'm going to ask you, and I haven't asked hardly anybody this.
Okay.
I should be doing it every time. Best game you've ever played with students?
Okay, best game. So I'm known for being able to make games up on the fly. Most of my kids will come into youth group and say, "What game are we playing?" And I won't tell them because I don't know yet.
I've had students accuse me of that, but you go ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
But the best game ever that we have at our church is in the driveway. There's 6 pre-made concrete squares. You've heard of 4 square, you've heard of 9 square. We play 6 square. And so it's very similar to 4 square, but it's just 6 square. And the reason I like that game is because it doesn't matter if you're the most unathletic kid or you're the most athletic kid, you still have a chance to win. And I really have a strong affinity to games, but for that reason, I try to pick games where athletic ability doesn't determine the victor, because games really break down walls, they break down barriers, and it allows the kid that you normally wouldn't see talking to another kid to interact and to get to know each other.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. The other thing is best talk that you've ever given, or the one talk that is going to hit the kids almost every time.
Yeah, for me, I guess it would just be my life. How God used Matthew 6:25-34 for me is don't worry about what you eat or what you drink or what you wear. Don't worry about these things. Look at the birds of the air. Look at the flowers of the field. Aren't you more important than they? Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all this will be given to you. And the older I get, the more that verse becomes even more precious, because I can look back and say, man, God always shows up. God's never left me. God's always provided. God's always cared about me. And that always resonates with students, because they're always looking to have the best clothes. They're always looking to eat the best food. They're always looking to power, prestige, status. We all want it. And but if you seek God's kingdom first, God says, I've already got all that stuff and I'll give it to you, but you got to give your heart to me first, And that always kind of hits home.
That's a great one. That is a great one. All right, this is the last. I kept saying last, but here's the final. Here's the final. What I've been trying to do lately is, and Chad Brewster, who's also, I'm interviewing. I've interviewed a lot of different people. There's so many people, David, that I have not interviewed. You have been really on the top of my list for the 5 years I've been doing this, and we just have never done it.
Right.
And so thank you so much. Once again, I'm very grateful that you spent this time. By the way, everybody, he had a date with his wife tonight, and she still let him do this later. And it's late at night because it's Youth Pastor World.
That's right.
It is late at night, even though I'm not full-time youth pastor anymore. I'm the guy who interviews youth pastors and things like that. I still have got that late night bug in me I can't seem to get rid of. And so tell us Chad's the one who said, I remember those jokes you told, and you told it on the air, and I just laughed all over again. And so tell me your favorite one or two jokes. Because somebody else might want to use them sometime.
Yeah, so my niece, she's in middle school now, and every Friday, her and I exchange dad jokes via text.
Oh, my. Every Friday. Wow.
Yeah. So for some reason, she loves her Uncle David, and just kind of gives me the opportunity to share that. But so her dad raises cows. So I said, well, this one's for you and your dad. And I said, do you know how your dad counts all his cows? With a calculator.
See, as a dad, I love that joke, man.
Yeah.
The calculator. That is great.
And so my brother called me this week, and he was dropping his son off for school, and he said, son, do you know what a buffalo dad tells his son when he drops him off at school? Bye, son. I've
personally known some bison, and so that really will resonate with those bison when they hear that joke, That is great. Listen, that doesn't get any better than those two dad jokes right there. I have never heard those two. That's how many bad dad jokes there are out there. All right, brother, listen, I'm proud of you. I'm thankful for you, and youth workers all over the world and parents will be thrilled when they hear this episode. And I'm glad you and Karen are still married through the tortures some days of youth ministry and ministry period.
Thanks, Doug, for doing this and inviting me on. Had a good time.
All right, brother. Youth Worker on Fire. We're out of here. See you, buddy.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.